Hello, my name is Richard Williams. I'm the son of Loa Williams, and who was the son of Lester Williams, my grandfather. What you're about to see is a recreation of a presentation that I gave at this year's Alexander Williams family reunion held in Joplin, Missouri on July the 13th. And the title of the presentation is The Montana Years, 1860 to 1870. I recently, last year precisely, I completed a trip out to Montana and other sites in that area. And I've brought along to show today a few videos that I took as I toured the area. It's the first of a series of trips I'm going to make to various places where the grandfather of my grandfather, Alexander Williams, spent his life. And he started off, he was born on a slaveholding plantation in Putnam County, Little River, Georgia, and moved west. Left home at 17 years old, I believe, and eventually joined the Mormon Church with Brigham Young in Missouri, Ohio, and Iowa. Then made the migration west again with Brigham Young after Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church, was killed in Missouri. So my area of interest for this session are the Montana years, the years after Alexander left the Mormon Church in Utah and fled to Montana with a part of his family. And in those years, during which the Civil War took place. And then in 1870, then he immigrated back to Missouri, and a lot of stories along the way, but today I'm going to cover the Montana years, and we're going to proceed with the presentation as I gave it last week at the annual reunion. Here's the cover page for the Alexander Williams Family Reunion Facebook page. As you can see here, there are two families represented on the picture. The Alexander and his wife Isabella, who was his original wife. Alexander, being a Mormon, had 5 different wives. The final one being Elizabeth, who he married in shortly before that trip to Montana. So here are the two families that I have documented in my records for Alexander. The elder family, I'm terming it, the children of the elder family, and then here are the children of the younger family that some of which were born in Montana and made the trip down the Missouri River to Missouri, and some did not make that trip, along with their mother, Elizabeth. But this photo, the background of this photo is taken is a stock photo showing the Mormon pioneers coming to the big mountain, which was very close to the Utah Valley back in 1847, and Alexander Williams made that trip by covered wagon with his original family, with the elder family. And again, this photo and many others are on the Facebook page, and I'll talk very little about it, except that I encourage you to join if you're a member of the Alexander Williams family, or any other Williams family or relation. Really would encourage you to join the Facebook page. Okay, so here is a relatively modern map of the West. as you can see, Salt Lake City, the main purpose of this photo is to give you a little context in which the planners of the Mormon exodus from Missouri, where they were being persecuted, and in fact their leader had been killed, when they're planning this trip to get away from the angry Missourians, and in fact everyone in the East had little regard for the Mormons, so their idea was to flee. And as you can see, this map documents the trail system leading west. So this was their choices as they were considering where to settle their large community. And as you can see here, the Santa Fe Trail is the older trail going south into the deep desert, and was used by the Spaniards many years before. The modern trail at the time of the Exodus, the 1840s, or the time it was being planned, the more modern trail was to follow the river, follow the water, and then once you get out west, there were passes to cross through the mountains, and the southern pass was the one that brought you into the Salt Lake City Valley. And as you can see here, it is the head point of many other trails that led to California and beyond, and the northern part led you to the Oregon Trail. So as you can see, Brigham Young and Alexander Williams and those other leaders of the church back then decided they picked a very, very good spot to immigrate to, being that they could be alone, yet they could be close to supply routes and stay in touch with the outside world while maintaining a privacy, if you will. So this is the way you would see the map today and understand the migration. If you look at a map from that Brigham Young probably studied of the area in the West, you'll notice that, again, here's the Oregon territory, which not only included Oregon and Washington, but a good part of Vancouver and British Columbia. And this particular area was under conflict. The major powers from Europe and the new U.S. of A. were all kind of competing to try to lure this territory into their respective control. The Missouri Territory, which you see here, which includes Montana, and just north of California and Indian Territory, this is the basin for the Missouri River, and the Missouri River would run from the St. Louis area up into Montana. And as you can see here, this is the trip that they considered making from Missouri to Salt Lake City. Of course, they had to go through and around the Indian Territory to avoid that. You can see that Texas extended way up as well, and Mexico, of course, down here. But the significant thing about where they were going was that it was called New California, as opposed to Old California, which is now known as Baja. The New California was an independent republic, or about that time it was being wooed by several world powers, and much like Texas, the U.S. moved settlers into the territory, and the large voting bloc had this territory leaning toward becoming independent or joining the U.S. just as Texas was concerned. So here's the map of the politics of 1847. If you look at the events that were going on at the same time, a huge number of events were going on. Again, New or Alta California there was a talk of peacefully annexing that territory. The Texas statehood occurred in 1845, and a ship sailed the following spring and landed at San Francisco. So all this, again, occurring during the time that the Mormons were planning their trip. California actually broke away from Mexico in 1846, and then a war ensued between the U.S. and Mexico. And in that war, the Republic of California actually joined the U.S. And the presumption was that they would become one or more states, which they did. The Mormon temple burned in Nauvoo, Illinois in 1848, and to give you a little bit of context, that when Alexander and Brigham Young and the waves of immigrants came into Salt Lake City, that Salt Lake was a part of California, and the valley that they chose was a neutral zone between two warring Indian tribes. So it basically was a perfect place to be as long as you could get along with the Indians, and you'll see a lot of information in the records that they did pacify the Indian tribes and tried to leverage the Indians to maintain the privacy that they enjoyed. Gold was discovered at the end of the Spanish-American War, and then of course we had the Utah War, which was a direct war, quote unquote, between the Mormons and the U.S. government. So that was a war over domination of the Utah Territory, which was forming. And then finally, years later, not that many years later, Alexander, and there are many stories to tell, Alexander moved his family from the Salt Lake City area to Montana, and during that time holed up in Montana until the war ended, and all the RLDS church was formed in those years. And at some point then, around 1870, then Alexander moved his family back to California. So that gives you a little context on the trip to the west, and then the trip up north to Montana, where I went and spent some time just recently, up in the Willow Creek area, and up around Bozeman, and I made this trip to visit the area, the towns. I didn't go there to do research or to find family. I just basically went to walk on the grounds where my family originated from after they left Utah. So this is a picture that I took of the gate that sits outside the ranch where my family settled in Montana. There were several ranches, but this particular ranch has a cemetery in it called the Williams Cemetery that I went specifically to visit. And if you locate this ranch, and I provide all this information in my research materials. By the way, that's the second half of this video. I'm going to show you my research materials and my tools, and hopefully encourage younger computer-savvy members of the family to participate in that. But go to the location where the cemetery is. You'll see this gate. Follow the road, and you'll find the Williams family cemetery. So let's talk a little bit about my trip. Here's my itinerary. I left Dallas on the 29th. Spent the night in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I got up the next morning, and I drove all the way through Yellowstone National Park on my way to Bozeman, Montana. And it doesn't show on this map for some reason. It's not, the green star is not there. Yeah, there it is right there. I flew into Jackson Hole, and then I made this drive up through up through Wyoming and up through Montana to Bozeman, and then spent the night in Bozeman, and then the next morning I drove up to Willow Creek, Montana, which, as you can see, is very near the headwaters of the Missouri River that's outlined very well on this map and continues on to the west. And spent the day in around Willow Creek, and then that afternoon we drove down through Idaho to a place called Soda Springs, Idaho, where there is a family site and a cemetery, and I also toured and took videos and things of that. But that's a subject for another report. And as you see here, the black star represents Salt Lake City. So again, when Alexander fled Salt Lake City, he probably took a route up through Soda Springs and some other Idaho towns, have left family along the way, or family eventually settled there, and he continued north and eventually took a ranch along with his eldest son, Clinton. Not eldest, one of his sons, Clinton, in Willow Creek. So this is my itinerary. I returned back to Jackson Hole and returned home on September the 1st. So next, I'd like to play some videos for you that I took along the way. The first one is Willow Creek, which is a little town where there's a lot of history, a lot of stories. Alexander and his sons, at least one son, lived there many years, and again, many stories that to be told on Willow Creek. And I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to switch over from my mic to the speaker so you can hear it. Here, and I'm sure this is headed to Willow Creek. There's a castle. Just interrupt. Possessions on a and you can imagine being in that canyon and the noise and confusion, and as the wagon teams pulled in and loaded their goods on the river boats, and quite a scene you can imagine. But that's some of the video footage that I took on my trip. I've got lots more, and it's available for viewing on the website or on the research site. So I'll give you more information about that later. But as you can see, at the time of the trip back to Missouri, the view of the U.S. had changed quite a bit. The new states were forming. It was still pretty wild and woolly and lawless in areas, but as you can see, the states in the West are forming, and maybe the reason for the trip was to get back to Zion, but it also could have been something totally different. We really don't know, and that's going to be the focus of of my research going forward is the whys and wherefores and exactly the root involved. Because if I had joined the newly reformed church as an elder and I wanted to get back and do some missionary work, which there's some evidence that Alexander did in these later years in Kansas and Missouri and Arkansas, if that were my aim, I would probably go back and stay in Independence and in that area. I don't know about the politics then, so don't really know. There are some stories that Alexander actually lived in Kansas somewhere. But there are lots of conflicting stories. It's just a matter of finding enough evidence to give one of those stories more credence than the other. But as I know at this point, the trip back to Missouri, back to Kansas City, finally ended in them settling in the Galesburg, Joplin, Medoc area of southwest Missouri. More to that story, more research is necessary before I can figure out exactly how that trap occurred. But in any case, the route is very clear down to Kansas. Now, I don't claim to have acquired this information on my own. I'm just beginning to research. I really collected a lot of information, and I stand on the shoulders of some pretty giant people. For those of you who have this book, Walking Tall in Utah Territory, it's written by a distant cousin of mine. Lots of history, lots of research into the records of the Mormon Church and other places. Lots of stories, opinions, interpretations that are gems, but fascinating book. And I do bring some of this material into my research information that I'll show you in just a second. And I also make this book available in digital form on the website so that you can read it yourself and search it and help me figure out which stories are true and which stories are probably false. Another book that I've given my grandson is a small pamphlet book that's out of print, hard to get, but I found one. It's called Historically Speaking, and it talks about the Montana area and about Lewis and Clark and all those other adjacent or tangent stories and history about the early pioneers of the area. And obviously, being a cousin of mine, there's a little flavor for the Williams family specifically. I also include this book in digital form in the website. And last but not least, I include information from the Williams family, the Alexander Williams family reunion, which has been an annual event since 1983. I have most of the original documents that were put together by a host of people, Dorothy Troyer, Karen Coit, Francis Williams, the Ortmans. I'm sorry if I'm leaving anybody out. The Troyers, Dorothy being the one I knew, contributed a lot to the organization of that event. And every year they produced a written record with photos and genealogies and things of that. They're all handouts on Xerox pamphlets, and I acquired those from my sister Vivian Williams, who's taking care of the reunion now, and I've digitized as much of that as I can get my hands on, and it too is in the research tool, which is called Microsoft OneNote, which is a tool that allows me to store information. That information could be published, and I intend to do that as a way of sharing with the general family. But for anyone who wants to help me, who enjoys researching this kind of information. I'm going to demonstrate the tool for you and show you what's there. But this is an item that's in the research tool that I put together, and it basically just shows a few of the family trees that I'm researching with the tool. I'm a double Williams. Here I am right here. I'm a double Williams, which basically means here's my father and his father and his father going up the line. This is the paternal order of Williams family number 1. And as you can see, George Williams in 1856 married Elizabeth Williams, who is that makes half of me double Williams, right? And Alexander Williams is the gentleman that we honor with this reunion. And as you can see, I've got a lot of other families involved here. I got the Morrisons and the Doubledees, my mom's family, and my grandmother on the Williams side, my maternal grandmother, who died way before I was born. I've got her family documented. I've got the other side of the Doubledees documented, and I got many other families in my research tool. So if you'll notice that all these are links to get into my tool. So if I want to go I want to launch the tool and go in at my record. You notice I'm number 1, and everything goes up from me. Just bear with me a second while this loads. This is on my PC, and it usually loads a lot faster than it would if you would access this information online. You can do that, though. There is a OneNote tool that you can get that runs in a browser where you can access this information online. It's not as robust, but it certainly gets the job done. And what this tool allows me to do is set up notebooks. And as you can see, I've got a notebook for the paternal side and the maternal side available right now. I mean, I've got a dozen different notebooks to keep everything separate. And as you can notice, I've got these things in brown or in gold, actually, are my genealogy notebooks. I've got one called Doubledee, and I've got one called Strange, and so all the other families that certainly my siblings recognize are also here. And I've got some generalized notebooks that have things that I'm researching. I'm researching a lot of things. Like I told the folks at the family reunion, I've not yet begun to research because I'm still working. But as soon as I retire, I will take this on full time, and I'm looking for young volunteers who are computer savvy, who could take a tool like this and help me kind of sift through and refine the data, because the data is of interest to everybody. And again, I could publish this page, my page, and all this information would come out, and I could publish it and then put it online as a page where everybody could see it. If you don't have the tool, you can still see it in a web page. So my section, you notice, has sub-pages or additional pages where I document things on other websites. So for those of you interested in DNA analysis and stuff, and you want to see mine or whoever else's I happen to have on my research data, you can actually get to the information. Family trees like the one I just showed you are available under my name, so you can see all the other family trees and navigate and click on this link and navigate over there. And of course, there are other pages that talk about descendants. This research repository that I'm showing you only goes from level 1 up to level how many generations that I can find, right? So depending on the family, I'm up as far as 12 generations away, going above me, but there's nothing below me. So my descendants are all listed here as excerpts from some of the other materials that are available. And I'm hoping that one of you youngsters out there will take on the task of bringing the descendants into the database and showing those lines as well. Quite a challenge, but we have to have someone do it. It gives so much to everybody in the family. So I'm going to go back up to the main page, and you'll notice that I've documented who my spouses were or are, and if you're a blood relative in mother, father, spouse, then you will have a link deeper into the record. So if I would go up and click on Loyal Williams, you'll take you to Loyal's page. There he is. There's a lot of photos and information about my father. There's a grid that basically describes his life at the high level. It's got where he was, when the children were born, significant events, pictures, that sort of thing. I carry documents, like birth certificates, military records, anything I can get my hands on. I try to pull out of the websites that may host those and bring them into the documents. And you'll notice here I pulled some stuff off of Find a Grave, which is a website that you can go to, and it's amazing. Not only do you get pictures of tombstones and stuff, but you can also see genealogy in here. So I highly recommend Find a Grave, and this is the easy way to get to it. But here's his military history and stories, the family trees, any notes that were taken, like for example. Dorothy Troyer's notes, any documents and stuff that support my research. I make use of Family Search. I go onto the genealogy sites and pull information out of those, because you never know what's going to disappear, right? So this is the kind of information that I store. And you notice I went back to the original page. Now I can go to his father, and at this point, my lineage to Alexander Williams goes up to the maternal side. So if I go to Elizabeth Jane here, that will take me to Libby Williams, and here's her page and information, and one more step up the tree, and that takes me to Alexander Williams. And again, there's lots and lots and lots of information. As you can see here, many pages, including the stuff that you saw in my presentation, and lots of ancestry sites. Here's Dorothy Troyer's chart. So I include everything of relevance and try to get the correct information translated off of these documents into the website where it can be searched. I've got RLDS records, I've got LDS records, I've got his will and testament. In this case, I've moved it into text so that you can search the website. Speaking of search, I've got Census Online. But speaking of search, one of the great values of this tool is the search tool, which allows me to look across all information in these notebooks over here to the right. So if I click in the search box, it tells me what I've most recently looked at. So it kind of helps me pick up where I left off, the pages within the research that I actually looked at. If I key a name in, and let's go with Troyer, because Dorothy started all of this. many years ago, and 1983, and I just recently posted a video from the 1983 Alexander Williams family reunion, and if you haven't seen that yet, it's on the Facebook site, so please take a look at that video. But if I want to find out about Troyer, you see that there are these pages down here have the word Troyer on them. So I'm going to pick one at random. I'm going to pick the book called Walking Tall, and we'll go in here and see exactly where in the book Walking Tall Dorothy or a Troyer is mentioned. And as you can see here, it's Dorothy M. Troyer. He's giving credit for some of the information. And here is the Walking Tall book, and the lucky ones who are watching this have their own copy. But if you need a copy, I can help you get one, a printed copy, or you can just look at the one that I've got here online and do all the research. And again, this is all about research. So I'm going to use the back button to go back to the previous place that I was, and back again, and that way I can go forward and backward, and I can use the links. I can navigate from the links over here. I can navigate from the links here, or if I'm really hardcore and know what I'm doing, I can come over here and actually navigate through the research document itself. So as you can see, under the maternal side on the Williams, for me, relative to me, I have currently I have two families that I've got documented. I got a family called the Thompsons, and you can see that the generation 6 of the Thompsons is the spouse of Stephen Williams, who was the father of Alexander. But if you trace her lineage back, it goes all the way back to 1596. And again, these will be different because I have different kinds of information and maybe no information on certain pages. And but again, I'm working on this. I've got kind of roughed out. But if you know what you're doing, you'll know that Alexander was a level 4 for me. So I'm sorry, a 5. And there he is, Alexander Williams. So I've navigated through this chart here, and it takes a while to understand my logic here, but I give the generation number, birth date, the number of child, other information that can help you. So if you're interested in the brother, you can jump right to there. I'm sorry, the son, the oldest son, and then the next 4 would be the next oldest son, or the next oldest child, and all of their progeny. So as you can see, if you're interested in, for example, Roland Williams, you'll notice that I have no. Wait a minute, that's not the right Roland, is it? Anyway, I don't want to confuse you by navigating this index. It's pretty difficult to do, and it's really there to organize the notes more than anything else. But please give this a look-see. Contact me if you are interested in acquiring the tool and the data. I'll put the data online, but the tool you need if you're going to be serious about this is Microsoft Outlook Desktop Edition, and we'll be happy to set you up and get you the data, and to where you can enjoy this research as much as I've enjoyed doing it. And it's just the beginning, folks. Thank you for your kind attention, and enjoy being a Williams. I do.